Our next conversation is going to be with regards to persons living with disability. And CT, you were telling us about your friend.
Yes.
Start that story from your friend.
Yes. My friend is actually called Maxwell. Now, when he first told me the story of what he and his friends in the US do, I was fascinated. But I didn't know the depth and the extent to which this work has been done. He was telling me about a container full of appliances for people who are living with disabilities that was having issues. The usual...
Clearance, Mananos.
Yes, the usual. And I even went with him to see that process. We went to the shipping agency, we went to the CFS, the places that people go to. And I then understood some of the difficulties that people have with simply accessing something that has been donated. Not bought, paid for, just donated. Long process.
What was the issue?
Well, one...
So let's start with, there's a container that arrived at the port of Mombasa. And inside that container, we have
all an assortment, yes.
Wheelchairs, crutches,
yes.
Things that would be helping persons with disability.
Let me take it even further back. It starts with identifying people who have certain needs with mobility. So whatever is in that container is to meet those needs, meaning you actually have identified and they're going to specific people.
So there's a specific beneficiary for every item inside that container.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is done by working with agencies that deal with the people who live with disabilities.
Okay.
So you know. Now, problem comes in not necessarily with the shipping. It is, let me say, a problem with the process. Now, Herbert, who is here, who has had to walk that journey of trying to determine how these things are done, can probably talk about what these details are and how problematic it is and where the problems arise. And in this particular case, after very, very many years of actually shipping, on this particular occasion, where I was brought in, this problem arose.
Okay. Let's welcome then Herbert Yongo, who is also known as DJ Habbo. He is a logistics manager at an organization called DDF. Let's welcome him with the day's proverb.
Our proverbs for the whole of this week have been from the country of Tanzania, and this is our final proverb. From Tanzania: a stone one sees will not damage the hoe.
A stone one sees will not damage the hoe.
Yes.
DJ Habbo, good morning. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. This proverb from Tanzania,
Yes.
what's your interpretation of it?
You might get many problems, but still you will get through. Yes. That's my interpretation, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's start with this organization called DDF. You're the logistics manager for
Yes.
DDF. What's DDF?
Disability Development Foundation.
Disability Development Foundation.
Yes.
What is it?
Actually, it's an NGO, a Kenyan-based NGO whose mission is to address the needs and empower persons living with disability in Kenya. Yes.
When did you join it and why?
I joined it in 2011 when it was founded. And it's basically to help people with disability. Yes.
What inspired you to join?
A lot of things. People are suffering outside here, and if I could help, if I give a helping hand, and I was able to, I decided, let me do it.
You decided I want to do this.
I want to do this. Yes.
You also double up as a DJ.
Yes.
What kind of DJ?
A club DJ, actually, basically a club DJ. Yeah, I work in various clubs in Kenya. Yes.
So your music is your passion.
Fast.
And then now lending a helping hand.
Yes.
Is also now part of what is ingrained in you.
Yes.
Over those many years, you must have come across many people with varying types of disability.
Yes.
And varying conditions and challenges.
Yes.
Just give us that journey of what you've seen or you've encountered.
I've seen a lot of people who need a lot of help, and we help where we can, and we're still going to help where we can if we are able to. Yes.
City talks about this particular container.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Container has arrived.
Yes.
It's has things that are going to help specific people.
Yes.
And then there's a challenge of clearance and all.
Yes, a big
It
challenge.
wasn't the first container to arrive, like City has said.
Yeah, actually it was the 14th.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. 14th container to arrive.
What's the issue?
Basically, we had a lot of help from the KRA, from the shipping companies, but one bad person, can't mention his name, but one person can spoil everything for us.
What was the issue?
Actually,
Did you lack documentation? Was it that it hadn't been declared when it was coming? Did it?
everything was there, but let's just say one of the agents he had something on his mind. Yeah.
One of the things that you cannot know until you actually start walking that path are the complications that arise in a process that is supposed to be a fairly simple and straightforward thing. Because from what I gathered, this is something I learned on that one day. Because when I went to the shipping agents, when they explained to you how this process is, it's a very straightforward process. From the time that container is loaded, that container belongs to that shipping line, okay? Now, there is documentation that comes along with that particular container. Now, a problem will arise as to when that documentation is sent, what happens with it? Because if that documentation is not managed properly, there will be delays. And everything thereafter, whether it is that you're going to seek an exemption of taxes or a waiver from KRA, everything is dependent on that piece of document or that documentation. If that documentation delays or somebody hasn't handled it well, and that's where the agent comes in, you will have a problem. And remember, with anything that is donated, there's something in this country. KRA will give you a leeway, a window, within which you do not have to pay. God forbid that you go beyond that window. Then charges begin to pile. And when those charges pile, you go to a point where now the donation stops making sense. Because the amount of money that you're going to have to spend to clear that particular container, you actually wonder why it is you bothered in the first place.
What?
Yes. And it is simply what is in the books. It's not as though somebody is being unkind to you. No.
It's a process.
Yes. And even if you want an extension, that documentation also needs to be provided for in time so that they can consider an extension. If you don't provide it in time to consider that extension, so no extension is given, strictly, those 10 days is it. Thereafter, it doesn't matter what language you use. It just keeps piling.
Okay, so from the point of origin of this container, who was it meant for? What was it supposed to come and then who was it supposed to come and help in Kenya? And how was that then supposed to play out? If you can, jump over that initial hurdle of getting the stuff here. Who was it supposed to help and what parts of the country?
This container especially was going to Naivasha. It was going to help everybody who was registered with the disability, what's the name? Everybody who was registered, who was a CBO, or mostly the CBOs in Naivasha, which are registered. Because you have to register and inform people that there's a CBO dealing with people with disability. So this one was going to Naivasha, which would be spread to Gilgil, Narok, and so on and so forth. And the people in the environment,
So like now for you as DDF, how do
Yes.
you identify, the people that you work with? What kind of assistance do you give?
Basically, we work with Crutches for Africa, which basically and the government as the CBOs who have registered. There's a place where you get them on the internet to get the CBOs where you can identify which county they are, which town, and so on and so forth. Yes.
So how do you reach out to them? Like maybe you can take an example of one person, not even through an organization, right? Like
Yes.
one person that you've walked a journey with them. This is how you found out about them. This is how you reached out to them. This is what you did to actually support them.
Finding out, we get a collaboration with the Department of Social Services, the county offices, and mostly I'll say churches. Yes, the pastors, priests, are the people who know.
They know the people,
they
actually,
know
right?
the people, yeah.
So when you say you work with organizations, then what role do these organizations do beyond identifying the people who actually need these appliances?
First of all, they identify the person with disability.
Okay.
That's a good thing. And then we try. Mostly, they don't do enough. That's why we step in by giving them mobility devices so that if she's a mama mboga, she can get to a place to sell them mboga and stuff like that. Yeah.
Let me ask this question, because I'm looking at what you do, and I'm looking at the very many organizations in this country that say that they're in the space of helping people with disabilities.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
You bring in the container.
Yes.
You give it to whoever it is who is supposed to. How do you then ensure that the people who are supposed to get it actually get it?
By distributing, we do it ourselves. We personally, me and people from DDF, we personally, even Crutches from Africa, they come down from the States and we do it ourselves.
Physically. Meaning, you are told these are the people, this is where they are, so you go to them.
We go to them, we
Yes?
carry the devices and distribute ourselves.
Is there a follow-up? Like once you've identified, let's say you have gone to a certain town or certain village,
Yes.
and you've identified person so-and-so who is living with disability, and then you've seen what this person needs is maybe crutches or wheelchair or prosthetic, and then you also now coordinate for them to receive it. Huh?
Yes.
Do you now start that journey with them, or once you give them, what then happens? After you've given them this donation of crutches or wheelchairs or prosthetics, what happens thereafter?
Actually, we do follow-ups. And recently with the coronavirus, where everything was locked down, we were also supplying food. We're giving away foodstuffs to the people who received the crutches and the devices. Yeah. So that's part of the follow-up.
Are there many people who actually don't have this?
There are so many. There are so many people.
So what happened? So for those who have not gotten, obviously these devices that they need, whether it's crutches, whether it's wheelchair, so they're actually at home, or are they carried? What happens on a normal day when they don't have the wheelchair, where they don't have the crutches, where there was nobody to come to their aid to be able to help them to move from point A to point B?
Some have family members who help them out, but some have good neighbors also. Yeah, and some just struggle. I've seen a lady just struggling she lives on her own, but we decided to get back. Even if, let's say, this container, everything gets over and gets finished and somebody didn't get, we find a way to reach that person. She gets a new, even if you have to buy it from the hospital.
How often do you bring containers?
Our last shipment to Kenya was, the last shipment was, I think, 2 years ago. Yes, but it had to come from Uganda.
What do you mean?
Because of the KRA taxes and stuff, we have to take it to Uganda and then ship it back.
Wait. It arrived in Mombasa.
Yes.
And then it went to Uganda.
It was intended for Uganda. But Ugandans also, let's say, they had so much, they decided to give us some more.
Now they donated back.
Some, yes, to us. Yeah.
How many countries on this continent do you work in?
All of Africa. all over Africa. I think the only country we've not touched is maybe Ethiopia. Yeah.
Is there any specific reason why you haven't touched Ethiopia?
No, but we are heading there.
You're heading there?
Yeah.
Yes, we were supposed to actually get in touch with Dave Talbot,
Yes.
who is your US contact.
Yes.
But technology is actually doing its thing. Because some of the questions that we'd like to ask is ask Dave how he got into this, why he got into it, and from their end, because we're listening and hearing and understanding how it works in Kenya. But
Actually, if Edna has been able to find him, he's on the line,
yes,
not on video link, but he's on phone. Dave, good morning.
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Can
Thank
you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you very, very well. Thank you for joining us.
Excellent.
You are the founder of Crutches Africa. Where are you speaking to us from?
Denver, Colorado,
Right.
out west. And
Oh.
it is minus 16 degrees right now.
hey,
That's minus 16 what? Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it's very cold. And we have snow.
Aye. All we can say to you is Polly. Dave, you founded Crutches Africa. Tell us about Crutches Africa. What's the organization all about?
Well, in 1955, when I was 2 years old, I contracted polio before they actually had the vaccine. And really, that is the beginning of Crutches for Africa, because I have a leg that was affected by polio, and and I recovered really well. I actually played American football, did a lot of mountain climbing and skiing, and did everything physical. But then about 20 years ago, I started having problems with something called post-polio syndrome, which is a recurrence of the symptoms of the disease, not the disease itself. Now, those symptoms are joint, bone, muscle pain, and like body flu symptoms. And the more active you are, the more those symptoms manifest themselves in your body. So being very active, I had to stop being active because it triggered the post-polio syndrome. Now, at the same time, again, this is 20 years ago, 17 years ago, I was in Uganda, and I saw a woman who had been affected by polio, and her leg was twisted up behind her. And I'm sure you've seen people who've been very twisted by the polio disease there in Kenya as well. But her foot was touching the back of her shoulder. So it was twisted all the way up behind her, and she was using a green tree branch for a crutch. And at that point, I had the thought that there was something that needed to be done for people that need mobility equipment that don't have it. And we have such a surplus of equipment here in the United States that I put two and two together and realized that if we collected it and shipped it to Africa and distributed it, we distribute it for free. And so our principle is that mobility should be free, because people who don't have a disability don't need to put money into a meter every morning when they get out of bed. And it's really an amazing thing that people don't understand how basic mobility is to the human experience. We don't even think we can lose it until we do. So I often ask people, what is the one thing in your body that you wouldn't want to lose? And most often people will say vision, and I agree entirely with that. But when you think about it, mobility is the most basic element that gives us the freedom to take part in humanity. Because if we can't get up out of bed to even go to the toilet, And, of course, to make coffee in the morning or whatever we do, the first thing, we swing our legs out of the bed. And if you can't walk, you need someone else to carry you, or you have to crawl on your hands and knees, or to scoot along on your backside and your knuckles. These are the ways that people, that I saw them having to move. And it's a struggle. And I was starting to develop that struggle myself at the same time, where I was starting to lose my mobility, and that has progressed as I've gone through the years now, and developed with Crutches for Africa. I've using crutches all the time, and I also use a mobility scooter. So because I've got good access here in the United States, we have ramps that are sufficient, and there's access in the public buildings, and that's something that is really missing in so many developing countries, that the access is just not there either. Look at the toilet situation. Look at pit toilets. Now think about the Jaja that has to go in that's crawling, and she's got to go into a pit toilet.
Sure. David, even as you saw a lot of these issues and then made the connection that there was extra in the United States to give on this side, did you then see that there was a rise in those people who needed help as you went along? And then how many times have you been able to do this?
Well, let's see. From when we started in 2005, when I really started the organization, we did our first shipment in 2006. We shipped over 235 pair of crutches. And are you still there?
Yes, we're here.
Okay, good. I was getting another buzz here. So that was our first shipment, and we did a trial run to Uganda to make sure that there was a legitimate need, and we distributed those in a matter of days. It was very simple, really. And we just literally found people on the street and gave them away to people that needed them, and fitted them, right alongside the street or in the market or wherever we found them. And since then, since we started shipping full containers, well, we've now shipped 190,000 pieces of equipment that we've shipped to 26 countries in Africa, and then another 15 countries outside of Africa. So that's been the way we've developed the program.
David, just stay on the line. We want to take a break, and then we come back and continue the conversation to just get to understand what you've been doing, what kind of support that also you enjoy locally from various community-based organizations and other disability-related organizations in the country. David Tablot is the founder of Crutches Africa organization. He's joining us from the USA via telephone line, and Herbert Yongo, aka DJ Habbo, is the logistics manager for Disability Development Foundation. He's here with us in the studio. We're talking about the unmet needs of persons living with disabilities and what kind of work donations actually do and what kind of support donations bring to the people.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
And our guest joining us on video link from Colorado is David Talbot, founder of Crutches Africa organization. So we've heard from David, and he's still on the line, on what inspired him to get here and the work that Crutches Africa has been doing so far. Herbert,
Yes.
there's also what you've been doing on the ground.
Yes.
I mean, there are cases that you have dealt with that have made you feel just even being proud of the fact that you got to do it, the fulfillment.
Yes.
Tell us some cases.
Let me tell you, when I see a kid who used to be carried every day to school, using a wheelchair to go to school by him or herself, that's enjoyment to me. When you see an old lady who's taking care of 7 of her kids, grandchildren, going to the market to sell food for her kids, that's That's enough for me. When we supply to hospitals where people have got into accidents, serious accidents, where they can't walk, where they can't even crawl, and they get to their job, that's a
big thing.
Yeah, that's a big thing to me.
A case, for example, of a grandmother.
Yes.
I think you're talking about a specific case.
Yes.
A grandmother, 7 grandchildren.
Seven
the grandmother
grandchildren.
is living with disability.
Now, about that, the 7 children used to carry the grandmother. She had 5 big kids, like from 14 to 17 years old, and they would carry the grandmother to the market to sell
Every day.
every day.
So she would go to the market. She's the one who's actually
Carried to the market by her grandchildren.
by her grandchildren.
Yes.
To go and sell goods.
Burger and stuff like that. And then carried back home
At the end of the day.
at the end of the day. We helped her.
What sort of distance?
Oh, how it was around 4 kilometers.
What?
And she lives in a hilly place. And the market is way up in the hill
Every day.
every day.
Has she lived with disability all her life?
Yes. She was born with polio.
Okay.
Yes.
So she never had crutches.
She never had
Or a
crutches,
wheelchair
never had
growing up.
wheelchairs. Or if she did, they got spoiled in some way.
Was she getting any other? Was she aware of anywhere else where she could have sought help?
It's in a room. It was inside, way interior in Busia. I can't remember the name of the place. It was way inside. The nearest hospital was 15 kilometers from where she was. And that's where we got big shout out to all the chiefs in the area, all the chiefs who helped us get these mobility devices to each and everybody in the community. Yeah. The chief heard about what we were doing and took us to her place. We had to park the car somewhere up a hill and walk down. We were actually Dave. Yeah.
How do you find these folks who are in need? Or do they just, one hears that you helped and they come, or how do you find them and decide who you will help?
There's a National Council of Persons with Disability in Kenya, whereby the registered CBOs are. And mostly, as I said, the priests, the chiefs, hospitals, they know the people in the community. Yeah.
So you reach out to, you go to the National Council, you find the CBOs, you reach out to the CBOs.
You reach out to CBOs, and then we call the director or somebody on the CBO chairman. He gives us advice on how to get to the place. And when we reach there, we get the priests, we get the chiefs of the area and so on.
So by the time you're getting there, this person is already in touch with a community-based organization that supports people with disability.
Yes.
But this CBO has not been able to give them this mobility equipment.
Yes.
So what has the CBO been doing to support this person?
Maybe most of them maybe give out foodstuffs and stuff like that, yeah. But mostly the CBO's main agenda is ways to help the people with disability. So they look for funds and stuff and foodstuffs and things like that to help the people with disability.
But clearly, if the work that Crutches for Africa does, and if they have to come in, it means that many of these CBOs are not able to provide this.
Yes, to everybody.
Yes.
They
provide some to some people, but they don't provide. They are unable to provide for everyone who needs them.
Yes. So you should remember also, Kenyans are stubborn. So if you're told to register, they think that you should give out some money, something. Yeah. So they don't come. So that's where the priests and the chiefs come in.
Because they are the ones who are directly in charge of the community.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Dave, how do you mobilize this equipment from your end?
We use a lot of Rotary Club members across the country that help us with collection, and then we have consolidation points in Phoenix, in the state of Maine, Philadelphia, Western New York State, in Washington State, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Georgia, of course here in Denver. And so our consolidation points, when we have collections in other states that are out and don't have a consolidation, they'll actually bring it to one of our consolidation points. And then we organize everything that's there and load up a 40-foot container, and that's how we ship it out then.
Do you get new equipment, or is it secondhand?
You know, it's interesting. A lot of it is used equipment, and we always try to, anything that's used, we want to be A or B grade, but we also receive a lot of equipment that does come in that's brand new, and it's surplus. And it's interesting that the suppliers here in the U.S. receive shipments in from the manufacturers. Let's say the manufacturers are in China, and the distributors here in the U.S. receive a new shipment, and then they send that out to the retail outlets, the different stores that sell these products. And when the stores get the new equipment, they take the old equipment that is still hanging, that's for sale, and they ship it back to the distributor, and now it's dead equipment. And that equipment, generally, it can't be resold or given away anywhere in North America. So Crutches for Africa is a perfect situation for us to save it from the landfill, for one thing, and to get it to people who need it. And so often we have brand new equipment that's simply surplus.
You know, this concept of surplus is actually very interesting. Dave, are we then saying that in the United States, people who need this sort of equipment, everyone who needs it has access to this equipment?
Very much. The access here is very reasonable. Even for people who don't have sufficient income for the equipment, they have resources here through different organizations and church groups that will provide them with wheelchairs or whatever they need. And so we just have so much of this that we're throwing away thousands of pieces of equipment every day. Thousands of pieces that are going into the landfill. And so we're trying to stop that flow and to repurpose it and get it to the people who need it.
Dave, when you think of what you have done in the years that you've done it, how has the motivation and the purpose that you had first started off with changed? Or is it still the same?
As far as the vision?
Yes, as far as the vision. And then, of course, and the accomplishment of the things you'd set out to do.
The vision was something that God gave to me. And it was a gift to me to be able to step in and to do something. I find that people often look for something and they never find a way to actually benefit their brothers and sisters in other parts of the world. And I'm very blessed that I have the opportunity to do this. So that was in the beginning. That moving forward in that has just been a very rich experience. And you asked DJ about how it feels when we give stuff to people and we see how much it changes their life.
Bless you.
Paula?
I'm just recovering from some bronchitis. But the vision has stayed very much the same, very focused, and I'm not wanting to be distracted from providing mobility equipment. However, there's an expansion of that to the rights of people with disabilities, and that deals so much with access, to be able to access buildings, to be able to access public facilities, and again to access to the toilets, which is just such a basic human right.
So, I mean, looking at longevity, it's interesting because you spoke about surplus, that folks in the states where you are, that you know of, that they don't really have a problem getting some of this stuff. Do you have a challenge then picking up the surplus? Or is it kind of like comes easy that, you you guys have this stuff that you're not using, can we get it? Do you have a challenge getting some of these stuff out here? Because it seems as though, there's not, you don't hit any hurdles in finding the equipment. And then thereafter, where is the challenge then getting it here?
Yes, the challenges are many. It's an amazing, Rotary is such an incredible organization, and the people in Rotary have a desire to help, and there's of course no one is getting paid to help. So I have groups all over the country that are collecting material in their communities, because basically every other house in the United States has got some sort of mobility equipment that is not being used. Somebody used it for a week or two, and it just goes into a garage or a barn, and it stays there and gets dusty. So getting the word out through the organization of Rotary is our primary element, and utilizing Rotarians excuse me, to go out and to collect the material, and then organizing how we get that material to our consolidation points around the country. It takes a lot of gasoline, but people do it. It's just absolutely an amazing thing, and when people understand that they're helping somebody to achieve life and to gain an element of freedom, it's very exciting for them. And when they realize that from their hands, it goes into a container and it goes to Africa, and within 3 or 4 touches, it's in the hands of a person who really needs this equipment, not on a temporary basis, but on a lifetime basis. So, yeah, there's a lot of challenges. There's challenges with shipping. And COVID just made a mess of everything, and the shipping situation has been chaotic, and has the cost has skyrocketed. So raising funds is another aspect of what I do, and we have individual supporters, and we get some grants, and we're always looking for the funds that we need to be able to ship the items to get them into the hands of recipients. But it costs about, let's say, $5 per item. So if it's a wheelchair or a pair of crutches or a cane or a walking frame, it's about $5 to get it from the United States into the hands of a person in Africa.
And this $5 that you're talking about is logistics, but not for the cost of the item.
Right. Well, and that's just that's what the logistics cost us to get it into the hands of someone.
So I've got to ask you this question, DJ. When the equipment arrives here, and you've already identified somebody who's a beneficiary, and you take it to them, do you then determine after how long they need a replacement? Because, like you've said, these things, it could break down. If it's a wheelchair, if it's a crutch, if a pair of crutches, they could break. If it's whatever equipment that you're giving, it has a shelf life.
Yes.
Especially bearing in mind that it's already arriving here as used. So after how long then do you look at replacing what you've donated?
That one, we leave it to the person who we've given to. For example, like all the wheelchairs, they don't have tubes. They're tubeless. And and funny enough, they designs like the same bicycle, the Black Mamba, the same wheelbase. So what you just do is just change. Yes, and for the crutches, we tell them to make the rubber tip from a color, the shoes. Yes.
So basically, you come and you customize it.
Yes.
For Kenyan environment.
Yes. Basically, we customize it. We've done that with Dave many times. We actually remove the tips and put their
color ones.
Their color ones, yeah.
And their color ones are more durable.
More durable.
Yes.
More durable, more grip. Everything.
It's called appropriate technology. Yes.
How long does it run for before you need to maybe replace?
Their color, a long time.
So if you give somebody crutches,
yes.
After how long do you need to give them another pair of crutches? I can imagine if it's a child, the child is growing. So.
Yes. Good thing, crutches are adjustable. They're adjustable. So we give the smallest to the smallest baby. There's some people with disability who don't grow. They're the same height until they die. Until they die. So, and there's some people who have already grown. Yes. Good thing the crutches are adjustable, so the height.
So those ones don't have a challenge?
Yes, they don't have a challenge.
When you donate canes?
Yes, we do. For the old people also. We give canes out to people who have problems like CT just said. Yeah.
So you had to mention old, didn't you?
Yeah.
It gets up. So if you look back, if you actually to look, and the question will also come to you, Dave, how many people have you reached to and donated mobility equipment to since you started?
In my experience, Dave maybe more, but in my experience, I think I'm heading to around thousands.
Thousands of people whom you've actually interacted with directly and come and given them the cake.
Yes. There's a day we went to Busia, Bondo, and we were expecting 70 people. We were Dave actually. We were expecting 70 people. People came up to 600.
Wow. And all of these people are in need.
They are in need. Some of them came with family, of course.
And they were coming from far.
From far.
Did you have enough?
No.
Of course not. Because you had enough for 70.
Yeah, it hurts sometimes when you don't have enough. Dave will tell you. Yeah.
Dave, in such a case, what do you do? What do you tell them? You have reached out, you have equipment that can only support X number of people, but then those that are in need come almost tenfold. What do you tell them?
I tell them to pray for us so that we can bring more. That's the best thing that they can do. And I can't make a promise because I don't want to. So many things can happen. I mean, we've had containers that have been lost at sea. So, you can't count on things being absolute. So making a promise to someone and say, yes, I'm going to get, but when we say that, pray for us that we can bring more equipment, that is what is in my heart, is to continue to bring what people need. And again, the material is here, and it breaks my heart that it is so difficult to give a free gift. And it costs so much to give a free gift to people just to be able to move. But it's worth it.
It is worth it. David, thank you for all the work that you're doing with Crutches Africa. And thank you for speaking to us as well. Herbert as well, Herbert Yongo, who is a logistics manager at Disability Development Foundation. Asante sana pia for even coming to speak to us and all the work that you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
And the people that have impacted.
Yeah, thank you for having me.